those in favour, please say aye. I'll put your hand up. Against? Carried. Thank you. Gary, yours.
Okay, so, and I'm going to be moving along the same lines that the council meeting that adjourns and reconvenes at the conclusion of the services and assets meeting. Can I have a seconder for that? I'll move it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fraser. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. So we'll see you at the conclusion of services and assets. Councillor Keast.
Thank you, Mayor Tong, and welcome everybody to this community and strategy meeting. We will move into apologies. I understand there's no apologies.
Yes, no. An apology.
We now have one from Councillor Byers.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So I'll move the, we received that apology from Councillor Byers for the day.
Thank you, Mayor Tong. Can I have a seconder?
Oh, Councillor Ruddenclaw.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And are there any requests for leave of absence? There being none, are there any conflicts of interest to be declared? None. There is no public forum and no extraordinary or urgent items on today's agenda. So we move to page 10 of the agenda for confirmation of the minutes from the 24th of August. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that, please?
It's Paul here, right? Oh, sorry.
Okay. When Councillor Case calls for a mover and a seconder, can you, rather than wave your hands, can you please say, I will, or something like that, please?
I will. I will, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Margaret. So, Councillor Ruddenclaw and Councillor Menzies, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So, thank you for that. Now we move to the report on page 15 of the agenda, which has a for the long-term plan organisational annual payments. And we have with us, I think, to present this, Catherine Cowie and Tina Harvey.
Good morning, everybody. The purpose of this report is to advise of the following organisations that are going to be presenting to this committee. They're going to update us on the previous 3 years of activity and future 3 years of activity to enable payment of their LTP grants. So as you know, we've made a few changes to the LTP grants, and these are the organisations that are going to be moving to a contract for service. So we have Environment Southland to talk about Waituna Partnership and Enviro Schools, Active Southland for the Fully Safe program, and Southland Warms Home Trust. Now, I think we should have Josh and Fiona from Environment Southland zooming in to go first. Is that right? Do we have
Yes, they're here.
Yep.
Josh,
here.
share there. Fiona might be having a few troubles coming in.
Just try to send it.
I've got one here. Going. Josh, might it be easy if you go and grab her and she stands at your computer as well?
She's not in the office right now.
Right, okay. Can you start?
I could do. Is the presentation ready to go?
You start talking and the presentation will appear.
Yeah, great. So I just wanted to acknowledge, to begin with, the support we have received from Southland District Council over the years, which has really helped our Enviro schools journey and to continue growing the schools that have become involved. So I've been facilitating the program for just over a year now. So if we move to page 3 of the program. So just as an overview, you can see there we've got 51 schools that are currently part of the Enviro Schools program in Southland. And then the breakdown of that, we have 15 early childhood centres that are part of the program, 33 primary schools and 3 high schools. And so each of those centres have a number of projects that they're undertaking and currently working on, which has been fantastic. And then you can see that I've broken that down just into the various areas that I've been servicing and helping with those schools. So 25 in Southland, 1 in Clutha, 9 schools in Gore and 16 in Macrae itself. So currently we have 2 employees. There's myself who works full-time and we have another part-time role based in Fiordland. And we are covering all of those schools in Southland between the 2 of us. Let's move to the next slide. So just breaking down what we've been working on there. So most of my time has been working with the schools.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt and say that's the wrong slides we've got up? We've got the Enviro Schools ones.
Yep, that's what I'm talking to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were sorry.
No, you're okay. So I'm just working through the key parts of my job there as an EnviroSchools facilitator. So the main parts of my role are working with teachers and educators to help them with the EnviroSchools program in Southland. So a big part of that is also working with other community groups alongside the EnviroSchools program, such as staff down at Southland Institute of Technology, just helping staff and community groups understanding some of the health and biodiversity areas that we're working on around Southland. Go to the next slide. And then finally, just to give you an overview, we've been working on a number of projects recently, which includes the Aquaban, Litter Intelligence, our regional hui that we run every year, and microplastics event, which has been really successful down here with schools. So this gives you a quick overview. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much for that, Josh. I know that the schools that are involved seems to have a bit of a ripple effect out into the communities as well, I understand. So that's really good.
Yeah, that's correct.
Are there any questions for Josh from others?
No question, Madam Chair. Just a big thank you to Josh and all those support to have all those tamariki getting that education is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tom.
Madam Chair, Councillor Rattenclaw's got her hand up.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Josh, for your presentation this morning. My children are Limehole's children, and they've been through the EnviroSchools, have all left school, and it's a fabulous program. And I've just got a question around your litter intelligence that you're doing with the children on the last slide. We've just been talking rubbish in Southland. What are you doing with the children and the schools around rubbish?
With the litter intelligence project directly.
Yes.
So what we do there is we talk to the students in the school about what is their local waterway. And then we run a number of projects around that waterway looking at essentially what is microplastics and how does that microplastics end up in their streams. And then we get the students down beside that waterway, we collect the data with the students, and then we take it back to the lab at SIT and we analyse that data and then taking it back to the students in the school so they can actually see what plastics are ending up in their waterway. And then, what are those plastics? What has been breaking down to get into that waterway? So the students have a first-hand experience at finding out what is going on around them in their local environment.
Well, thank you. That's amazing. Would there be any chance I could have a conversation with you at some stage around that? I'm involved with a catchment group, and we've been looking above the water rather than in the water, rubbish. If I'd linked up with you at some stage in the next couple of days, would that work? Yeah,
that's fine. We're currently putting together an education kit so that community groups can get involved in this litter intelligence workshop. So, yeah.
That'd be great. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Chairman.
Yeah. Any further questions?
Yeah. Councillor Karen's got her hand up.
Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation, Josh. I was just interested in where your funding comes from for EnviroSchools, like the mix-up of Southland District and any other contributors. And also if you have any, like, what the situation is. Do you have a wait list of schools who want to be involved that for funding reasons is limited, or just a quick overview of where things are at with your project? That was.
Yeah, okay. So funding comes from a number of councils throughout Southland, plus We also have Toi Mata who run Enviro schools, so they help with some of the funding, with resources and getting us to training events. That's the educators. We do have a number of schools that want to get involved, but it comes down to how many staff we have. With me being the only full-time facilitator, I'm working with schools from Stewart Island right over to Fiordland. So it's just about making sure we have enough staff on the ground to support all of those schools. We could be working sort of with more high schools, but again, it just comes down to making sure we've got enough facilitators to support the schools long term. So we're trying to create that sustainable approach. So in the first couple of years, schools need a lot of support, and then within 3 to 5 years, they tend to be running the projects on themselves. So yeah, we're just currently looking at getting 1 or 2 more staff members, and that'll really help help run the program a bit more down here.
Thank you for that, Josh. Any further questions? Being none, is Fiona available now, or is she?
I am here. Oh, no, not that one.
Not that one. I'll rephrase that. Is Fiona Young available to continue the presentation, or should we move on to one of the next presenters and go back to Fiona when she's available?
Suggest that's a good option, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have next presenters available there?
Yes, we do.
The next ones are Active Southland. We've got Gemma O'Neill from Active Southland and Kate Macrae from REAP.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you very much, Josh. We'll hear from Fiona shortly.
Yes, thank you.
And welcome to Gemma and Kate.
There you go. I feel like I need to stand up. Morning, team. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak today, and thank you for the support that the Southland District Council has given to this program over many years. It's very much appreciated. My name is Kate Macrae. I'm part of the team at Southland REAP based in Winton, and I've been involved in this initiative since its introduction as a pilot program approximately 10 years ago. So yeah, it's been awesome to be part of such an awesome program.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm Gemma O'Neill. I work for Active Southland, and I've been involved for just on 3 years now with Kate and her team, but Active Southland and previously Sport Southland were involved in the program since its inception as well.
So, moving on. Just to reflect on the happenings over the past 3 years, probably the key thing that has happened is the change in 2017 away from a Learn to Swim program to a Swim to Survive program. As you're probably aware, the drowning rates in New Zealand have not dropped. And after much research from Water Safety New Zealand, the focus was to change to a Learn to Survive program. For many of the children that we work with, the only time they have in the water is when we are with them. So we cannot honestly teach them to swim in 10 sessions a year, but we can hopefully teach them skills to survive if they become in trouble in the water. Not only for themselves to survive, but they may be able to save somebody else's life. So that is our focus as a program. Alongside that, we ensure that all our tutors are AusSwim trained, which is a really thorough program that they're put through, and then it is renewed every 2 years. So that's the base rate for our tutors.
We've had some slight changes in the way that we've interacted with some of our schools towards the eastern side of things, with the changes in the Gore District Council swimming program. In the past, some of the schools that had sat inside the MLT boundary, but were FEC schools, they've travelled to Gore for their lessons. that was no longer an option come the start of this last season. So we've made some changes to make sure that those schools were fully made part of the Swim Safe program. We changed our funding model with the MLT to reflect that. So we now ensure that Wyndham, Edendale, Glenham, Tokanui, Tapanui and Waikoikoi, which are inside MLT and SDC boundaries, are all serviced as part of the Swim Safe program.
So our plan going forward for the next 12 months, so we're due to start in October, hopefully, or November. We are going to be delivering to 32 schools over term 4 and term 1. The furthest north we go is Garston. They travel up to Frankton for their delivery. We go over to Tianao. Tianao has been a challenge for us for a variety of reasons. They have a really, as you'll know, a growing role up there. So it is hard to deliver to all the children because we can't get them enough pool time to get them all through. We also have an issue with tutors up there. In the last season, we managed to deliver to some of the junior school. This year, we're doing even more. So sometimes we have to negotiate with the schools what's best for them. We also go over to Stewart Island. We do a 3-day program. We send a tutor over and she works more or less 9 till 3 in the school. At the pool to deliver to those children over there, which is awesome. Yeah, that's all from me.
One of the things we're looking into is part of our evaluation program that's come out, that a combination of looking for those older students that have been through the program a few years in a row now, making sure that they're getting enough, that they come to the end of their time and they've got enough. We do struggle with some of the pools are quite shallow, and so getting them to get a full understanding of what it's like should they really be in some kind of trouble. So we're looking to, about to begin our conversations with ICC staff and Splash Palace to look into hosting a deep water experience at the swimming pool. So those schools would bring their senior students into Splash Palace for that, so that they get a true turn in the deep. We're starting conversations with ICC today, actually. It's where we're heading next. And then we'll take that information to the schools, and obviously that conversation and what that needs to look like would come with conjunction with those schools to make sure that it's exactly what they would want and what they would need for their students going forward.
Some of the successes from the program, one of our biggest successes, of course, is the ongoing engagement of our schools to this program. The use of local pools for our pool delivery. We've got some fantastic pools out there that our schools can use. They don't have to bus everybody to Invercargill. We use Ojai, we use Winton, we use Macrae, we go Lime Hills. We've got some lovely pool facilities, and it's great that the schools are able to go locally to use them. That's a real key part of our program. We've also introduced, instead of doing PD for teachers, when once again teachers are expected to come, maybe take a day and get a reliever in, we take our tutors into the school to visit a staff meeting, whereby they walk alongside the teachers to make sure they're up to date with how the program's going to be delivered when it's going into their school. Those are delivered by the tutors that are going to be working with those children, and that seems to be working really, really well.
We have very much appreciated ongoing support from a list of local funders, Southland District Council, Community Trust South, MLT, and most importantly for us, because we run their program, is Water Safety NZ, and we're very lucky that we've had numerous years now consistently, and again going forward from now on with those funders. So it's very important that we can carry on those wonderful relationships. We also have a very strong advisory committee. So as you can see there, we have the list of everybody involved. So Active Southland, Southern REAP, we meet once or twice a year, and it includes staff from the ICC and GDC swimming fraternity. We have primary principal representation, and also staff from Swim Southland. So we get together and discuss either evaluation from the previous year, ideas for going forward, what everybody else is doing, take snippets of great ideas from everybody else's programs and might include them in our own. So it's a wonderful working relationship. It's a great group that we can call on when we've got questions or queries or things we're trying to plan forward for. So that's a very important part of our process. Challenges from the program, probably our biggest challenge that we have is to get the tutors.
to get qualified tutors, to get tutors that are available. It's not a faint-hearted program to deliver when you're in the pool for hours. So the tutors that we do have are really committed to water safety and to teaching children. This is not a local issue. This is a nationwide issue. Water Safety talk about it. Swimming New Zealand, lately when we had a Zoom with them, everybody talks about it. Our local Splash Palace talk about it as well. And again, we're having a conversation even with Splash Palace around how can we work more efficiently together to secure those people 12 months of the year, because we can't offer them full-time work, but maybe we work alongside other providers to see if we can get them full-time work between us. And even the delay of NCA exams have affected us, because we've got some year 13 students who are really good tutors that now that their exams are delayed, they can't work in our schools for us. So yeah, there's lots of things, lots of issues that we get thrown, let alone our pool facilities who, when a boiler breaks off, blows up, a roof blows off, a pool goes on fire, you name it, I can tell you, a code brown, I can tell you all the things that the challenges that we have day to day from the program, but it really makes us smile because you just never know what we're going to deal with. So, yes. The other thing is that we do have to fit in with other school commitments. We have school camps, we have play days, we have lots and lots of things that we need to work in with. And as you know, when you work in the schools, everybody wants a wee piece of schools. It's the best place to go if you want something done, go to a school. But the principals and the teachers are fantastic at trying to work in with us as well around making sure that they get their program when they want it and when we can deliver it.
Next slide there. Thank you. The next couple of slides, we've got some stats here from our evaluation from our 2021 season. Every year we do our evaluation. The last couple of years we've ramped it up a bit more, and we now do evaluation of our schools, the tutors, and also the wider school community. So this last season we used online surveys. It was just the easiest way to do it in the pandemic situation. We had good uptake from that, and these are some of the statistics that have come back out through that. We use these outcomes to base our agenda for our end of year meetings with the tutors and our advisory committee. We discuss the positives, the negatives, opportunities and barriers, and where we can go with those and what we can and can't change or influence. We also use these in our reports back to our funders, and we also use them to discuss with the schools and the tutors much more down to that level of the delivery level and what the schools are looking for and what the tutors can do differently or adjust to make it work in. Next page is sort of the qualitative. We get comments coming back from them as well. And as you can see, more often than not, we're getting a lot of positivity coming out of these surveys. And as we're Southlanders, there's a lot of water around us. A lot of us travel to water for holidays. So, you know, we can see and hear stories back about that this is beneficial for our kids and their wider whānau groups.
As part of that evaluation, we're always looking at how we can improve on things. And one area that we are looking at is the extension of our older children. In the pool with our tutors, we're always discussing what can we do better, what can we change, what can we add to our program. And it's a really important part of our program is to make sure that we reflect on what we're doing well, but what we actually can improve on. We need to, as Jim has mentioned, the deep water experience is something that we would love to be able to include in the program that we can't in a lot of our little schools. Like, I'm not sure if you know Wallistown School, how shallow it is, and we're still delivering in that program. Ideally, we would love our senior students to be coming into Splash Palace, deep water experience being in an overturned boat, kids realising that it's dark in there and how they have to deal with that. So that's kind of one of our visions going forward. We also are always looking at trying to include the schools that are not opting into the program and stressing the importance of that water safety education as well as stroke. A lot of them, the schools that are not engaged are keen to still carry on with the stroke, which is great, but we would love to see the water safety in there as well.
Yep. The partnering with other organisations to secure tutors, Kate mentioned it before that we're looking to work with the likes of Splash Palace and the Gore Multisport Complex to work in to try and find the people that are already trained, that are in the system, that they know what they're talking about, and give them greater security in their jobs as well, more hours across the year. And that's something that we're ongoing discussions with. We've had a couple of changes on our advisory committee and people have gone, oh, this would be a great idea. So it's something we're starting the conversation about today when we go and see Splash Palace as well. And hopefully that helps us with securing more local tutors and helping more locals to have more security in their work as well.
So plans going forward, we've got an annual meeting coming up with the tutors, and we're bringing the tutors in alongside the schools to have a discussion, to again get some more feedback, to see what we can change in our program and what can be implemented into it.
And finally, at the end of this month, we've actually got Water Safety NZ and Swim NZ representatives visiting in Macrae. They're coming down to spend a day with active Southland and Southern Reach staff, just to discuss the program, the funding, our outcomes, what other support we can work on, and what other changes may need to be required. So that's really exciting for us to have their support to come down and discuss with us and see some of our local happenings. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that report. We learn to swim is great, but I think I agree that the water safety side of it is imperative, and when you've only got a limited time with the children, the skills to survive are far more important in lots of ways than an attempt to, because learning to swim is actually developed. You have to be constantly at it to improve, really, I think. So it's great that you guys are focusing on the water safety side of it. Are there many schools in Southland not involved in your program?
I think it's 9.
I think we usually refer to 40 or 41 schools as our maximum, and yet we're at 32 this year.
So do any of those schools have swimming pools, or is it more around the inaccessibility to a pool that limits their participation?
So to be fair, some of the schools have got people in their schools that are teaching, and when I've touched base with them, they've said that they are including the water safety in their own swimming program. So that is why they're not opting into our program. But every year we visit every school to see if they want to be part of the program, and we've got 2 that have opted back in for this coming season. So they never cut from, like, we never cut anybody. We always go back and say, hey, you know, we're planning the new season. Are you keen to be involved? And if they're not, that's fine. We respect that. And then we go back to them again next year. Because alongside, we also take out resources, like we take chili bins, and if you could see our tutors' boots, chili bins and weed mats and stuff that the kids realise that actually that's sitting on the beach. We can use that to help save someone. So it's that kind of stuff as well we get involved in.
Well, that's great. Yeah. How deep does a pool need to be to give a child the deep water experience?
Well, preferably, with being able to take them to that deep end of Splash Palace would be the ideal. They also have the equipment there, such as the boats and stuff, that they can be really immersed in it. They can learn the skills in a much shallower pool, but we sort of have the thought that if you've only ever learned in a shallow pool, but you fell out of your boat in the middle of Lake Tiano, you're not quite 100% prepared. You've learned the basic skill, but you've probably not had that real experience of what that might be like. So it's just ensuring that those kids would have every way of knowledge or help learning, that if they come across a real life scenario, that they've at least been able to have a go at it in a learning in a safe environment first. We're practical.
And where they can't actually put their feet down and feel the bottom. Yeah. So when they stand up, there's nothing there, which is the ideal experience that we'd like to put them all through.
Yes, because that is important. That realization that you can't touch the bottom is a big part of the psychological battle. Yes.
Yeah. And it's okay if that happens.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering, because Wyndham is apparently a reasonably deep pool, but I'm not sure how deep it is. So, yeah. But you'll know those statistics, no doubt. Are there any other questions from councillors?
If I may, Julie,
yes.
You mentioned the MLT area, and I see Gore District isn't a funder. Southland District is. So I'm just wondering about two schools that are sort of on the boundary in Tutapu and Tutorau. They're covered through the MLT aspect, I presume, or by SDC, or do they miss out?
In the current arrangement, they are swim safe schools. They are invited, like Kate said, every year they're approached to come as part of this program. They fall outside of the GDC's boundaries, so they are not eligible to go and be part of their program at their swimming pool. So they're invited for us. And this year, Te Tipua went to Edendale. They came in fully part into it, swapped over from what they were doing last year with Gore and came through with us. And Tutorau opted not to in this last year. But same as what Kate said, every year they'll be approached to go back and invited back into to our system. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We also had head choke as part of the program for the first time. We delivered to them in term 4 at the Central Southland swimming pool in Winton. They loved it so much that they came back in term 1 and fully paid. They just found it so worthwhile for the children.
Tutorau was applying to the community board for funding to take kids to swimming lessons. And they didn't actually get the money. So I don't know, they need more dialogue or what, but yeah. I just see 85% satisfaction. So the other 15%, did they not answer the survey, or was there specific issues they had? Or, I mean, you can't make everyone happy, I guess. And 85% is very good. But I'm just wondering about that other 15.
Some of the schools would have liked to deliver it at a different time. Yeah. So that's quite a hard one, because ideally so how many schools are we doing this coming? We're doing 32. When we put the survey out to work around pet days and camps and productions, they all opted, really, majority of them wanted them in 2 weeks, in the same 2 weeks of term 4. So we needed like 50 tutors. So we can't deliver to everybody all in their ideal. So I think some of that came through.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, and it's a great program. Well done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Mayor Tong.
Hey, thank you so much, and so pleased to hear that you're still smiling through all the challenges. I know as an older person and someone that came from an era where swimming was mandatory, no matter what the conditions were outside, we all had a pool. And I know that there was an idea 3 or 4 years ago to have a portable pool to go around to some of these areas, but I understand that didn't work as either. So I don't really have a question other than a big thank you for what you're doing. I certainly wasn't aware of what you were doing in regards to overturned boats, etc. And from someone who's experienced some of that, the aftermath of some of that, I really thank you for it. But I'd like to just say, when you have your meeting with Water Safety New Zealand and Swim New Zealand, I'd be quite happy to come to that meeting, because this is a nationwide issue, as you say, and we need to prevent serious injury through brain injuries, through near drownings, and obviously fatals from drowning. So I'm more than comfortable to attend if I can. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Mayor Tom.
Awesome.
Thank you. Councillor Ruddenclaw.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you, Kate and Gemma. Great presentation, very passionate, like all of us, about our children swimming in Southland. The extension program, I think, is fabulous as well. What barriers for you to get all these children into the pool, and funding-wise, do you have enough dollars around it? Is one of my major questions. A lot of my questions have been asked by other councillors.
It's definitely something we have to work through. That's one of our questions that will be part of the discussion today with the ICC staff at Splash Palace. What would that look like cost-wise? We need to look into what that would look like from a transport perspective. So once we have all that information on the table, that's when we can look to where we might have to go from a funding perspective, what buy-in the schools may need to have as part of that process, all that kind of information. Once we have more of it on the table, we'll be able to start thinking along those lines from there, and we can get back to you in the future if need be.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, hi, Kate and Gemma. Yeah, great the work you're doing. I remember several years ago we had an aim, I thought, through Swim Safe that every child by the age of 12 would be able to swim 50 metres. Is that still in vogue, or have we, perhaps altered our aim to more to the safety aspect?
Thanks, John. So initially when we started the program, the vision was that every primary school child could swim 200 metres, and we used to celebrate that when they could achieve it and they got a certificate for water safety. The highest criteria now in the water safety is swimming 50 metres. So it is still swimming 50 metres, but the focus isn't as much on if you have a very good stroke to do that 50 metres, because it doesn't matter what it looks like in the lake. If you can swim the 50 metres to survive, then that's great. So the focus has gone away from being a beautiful breaststroker or a beautiful backstroker, but survival stroke, 50 metres.
Okay, thank you. And so is the capability of our young people in the pool and the lake around swimming and survival and safety, is that improving, static or declining?
I wouldn't say it's drastically improving yet, no, because the kids are not getting the opportunity to have these experiences in the water. And if you look at the drowning stats, it's not improving.
Yes.
And it's a good conversation that we're going to have with water safety when they come down around, okay, what else can we be doing?
Yeah, and that was going to be my final question. In your bucket list, what would you like to see?
In my bucket list, I would like to see deep water pools all over Southland that are funded by Water Safety New Zealand, so these children can have the opportunity to experience firsthand around falling out of a boat. Like, we have a boat, we take our children to the middle of the lake and we make them jump off. Wouldn't it be awesome if every single child in Southland had those same experiences, and in the river?
Yes, yeah, I agree, it would. Yeah, so great work.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas, and thank you. I don't believe there's any other questions.
Yeah, just one more comment for Kate and Gemma. Can I talk to you offline at some stage? My partner Sharon does the child youth mortality for Southland and joins up with New Zealand or the rest of the nation quite often. And I think that someone from that group needs to be with the your meeting when they come down.
Awesome, wonderful.
Yes, it's a good point, because we're doing great work here, but if we're not changing the overall statistics, we need to look at why that is actually happening, really, isn't it? So water confidence is key for all our children. So we look forward to your continuing with your successes today. And
Great. Sorry, Madam Chair. That's a great comment. And statistics are statistics. They're just a number, as it was pointed out by Councillor Duffy, but it's when you get into the nitty-gritty of how some of these young people have passed away is when you get down deep, so to speak.
True. Yes. So any help we can put out there is great. And we thank you for your report today and your ongoing work in this area. And we look forward to a successful year, and a drop in the statistics would be perfect, wouldn't it? So ongoing drop in the statistics.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I believe we have the Southland Warm Homes Trust to present to us.
Yep, that's the way.
welcome to this Zoom meeting, which is all a bit difficult. But anyway, we will make the best of the situation, and thank you for your report.
Yeah. Well, good morning, Your Worship and councillors. We welcome the opportunity to speak about the role of the Southland Warm Homes Trust and the Warmer Kiwi program that we're implementing at the moment. By way of introduction, I'm Jim Hargest. I'm the chair of the Warm Homes Trust. I have these. With me on my left, we have Alan Beck from PowerNet, who handles the administration. And on my right, we have Samaria Beaton, who is the general manager from Aurora Synergy, who are our contractors who actually do the installation work. So obviously any difficult questions go to either of them rather than me. Look, we've been operating for 13 years and we have now close to 8,000 homes or families who are benefiting from the program in Southland. With our loyal, supportive local group of third-party funders, along with ECA, this has allowed us in this past June year to date to insulate 530 new homes or different homes, as well as 300 heating upgrades. Our partnership with ECA has meant that over the last 12 months, $1.67 million has come from ECA into our province. And I'm sure you will agree that any time you can leverage money out of central government has to be good for us down here. Alan has a few slides that I'll get him just to work through, just to explain how it works. I'll leave with you, Alan.
I'll let you scroll forward. Oh, thank you.
There you go.
There you go. People can see. Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity just to explain the program and the highlights that we've had over the last 3 years and the most recent year, which is just completed at the end of June. Of course, the Southland Warm Homes Trust began as a collaboration of different stakeholders with an interest in providing this scheme to the benefit of low-income families or those with a high health need across the Southland region. We have a diagram on this slide which it provides a basic overview of how the bring it back there, of how the Warmer Kiwi Homes program administered by ECA operates. And when you see the Southland Warm Homes Trust in the middle of the diagram here, the Southland Warm Homes Trust it receives and applies for funding, community funding from a range of different stakeholders and funding providers across Southland. And that enabled in the initial scheme with ECA to draw enough local support that ECA would provide a service provider contract to the Southland Warm Homes Trust and also provide their share of funding through the Southland Warm Homes Trust. The Southland Warm Homes Trust then works with Aurora Synergy as service provider, the great work that Samaria's team does in engaging with the homeowners who are eligible and assessing their homes, providing training as well as installing the insulation and also more recently the providing the heating units to those installing the heating units in the homes. Once the work is complete, ECA provides funding to the Southland Warm Homes Trust, who effectively pay Aurora Synergy for all the installations. The scheme has been effectively very similar to this across the 13 years that the trust has been operating. From time to time, ECA will increase or decrease their level of funding, and that's where one of our tasks is to manage that level of funding so that within our budget and business plan that we allow for that funding that we receive to be allocated to those homes where it is intended. Within the Warmer Kiwi Homes program, which started on the 1st of July in 2018, the government extended the program to enable those eligible homes to receive a heating unit, whether it be a heat pump or a wood burner. Now that would have been included in the subsidised scheme, And under this arrangement, there's a slight different requirement for the management of materials and that particular work with the way that the heating is structured. And so in this particular case, the Southland Woolman Homes Trust has just adjusted its structure to be a contributor, still provides the same percentage of funding. And we have, again, the great work from Samaria's team at Arua Synergy and Hotspots Installation, Southland Home Ventilation, and Laser Electrical Gore, who also have service provider contracts with ECA to install the heat pumps or the wood burners. Now, they are specific units that ECA prescribe that can be, and there's certain criteria that that must be followed in choosing which unit for the property. To the next slide. We've had, over the last 13 years, we've achieved almost, as Jim mentioned, almost 8,000 homes insulated. And around that work, we've had fantastic support from stakeholders and funding partners, including yourselves. We've raised almost $7.5 million, and that has enabled us to draw about $16.5 million from ECA from the government, and helping to subsidise the insulation going into the homes. So ECA did some research, and this is a common statistic that they provide, the benefits of insulating a home and removing the dampness of a young family, or what we might see from the impact of dampness with mould and other issues, that they found that from every dollar spent on home insulation, there is a general saving of about $6 from medical costs or health costs, with families that would otherwise have gone through the hospital doors to A&E or have required some level of hospital intervention. So it's an incredible payback, and especially with the benefit at the current present percentage, the government or through ECA are providing 80% of the funding, and the Southland Woolman Homes Trust is providing 15% of the cost. Plus, we also have other initiatives that we're focusing on. In the most recent 12 months, and this is a very good result, 530 homes, as Jim mentioned, insulated, 300 homes receiving a contribution towards their heating unit. That's despite the disruptions of COVID, which did impact the scheme. There was, during level 4, it was basically tools down and find other sort of internal work that could be done to keep the staff occupied there. And Samaria, you found a few different initiatives with your team around training to still keep the focus there. And then under level 3 and level 2, protocols which enabled the team to get back into installing in people's homes. So just in terms of the other highlights, in May this year, the government announced as part of its budget announcement that they would extend the Warmer Kiwi Homes program. It has been very successful. They spent almost $100 million in funding across the country on this scheme during the year. It was a very popular uptake, and they've committed for the next 2 years, $120 million. So they have revised the level of funding that they were to provide, and they have committed to that for the next 2 years. And under that arrangement, the Southland Woolman Homes Trust will be looking to continue its work with ECA across that time. With ECA increasing the funding to stimulate the post-COVID environment, to encourage people and jobs through this work, they increased their funding to 90%. And that gave the opportunity to the Southland Woolman Homes Trust to enable it to look at a couple of the other initiatives which it had been for some time looking to instigate. And that's focusing on a health criteria. So in the original scheme, the program focused on low-income families, those that have a community service card as the measure, or those with a high health need and referral through a doctor. Of recent times, the government has reduced that just to the low-income criteria, community services card, and or living in a what they class as a low socioeconomic area, like a deprivation index level 8, 9, and 10. So the low-income, low socioeconomic areas, and from our own initiative, we're looking to try to bring back those with a high health need and provide a subsidy to those families as well. The government also announced in the budget that they would focus on Healthier Homes initiative, which would actually encompass those that may be living in a rental property, or that might require more than just insulation, but may require other interventions within their home to a smaller level of assistance, but still that funding required. And from the point of the Southland Warm Homes Trust and working with Aotearoa Synergy, we believe that we can get stakeholders there, and we're virtually at a point with assistance through Public Health South and Southland DHB, we can get some assessments going and other further reach of the program that we've offered. Sorry, there's just some of the items that I've covered there. There's additional ECO will also support concentrated special areas, and I believe that they are interested in looking at offers around those rather than just the general scheme at the moment that we offer to individual families. And we're also required to be health and safety assessed as well, and we have a current pre-qual health and safety assessment through the systems that we adopt through the work we do with Samaria's Aotearoa Synergy business. With the great support, from the Southland District Council, we've managed to insulate approximately 75 homes across the Southland District Council region. That's 235 homes across the last 3 years, and that's been through grateful acceptance of the $35,000 annual funding that has been received. And that potentially, by the time that is grossed up through the government funding that is received as well, that has the impact of a potential about $1.5 million saving in hospital costs to the people of Southland. That's just a conclusion of our brief presentation. Welcome questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Ellen, for running us through those slides. What's become very apparent is while we've been going for 13 years, the need is still there. And just over the last 12 months, just to give you an example, Samaria's team have done in excess of 1,700 assessments. So that's another 1,700 homes that they have been into over the last 12 months to assess whether they are eligible to receive a grant from the Warm Homes Trust and to help them in their health needs. So I guess we all thought, over time the program might wind down, but the need is still there, and I think that 1,700 is really stuck in my mind. And I think bear in mind that Aotearoa Synergy are not the only people who are perhaps visiting people's homes to try and upgrade them. So the need is definitely there, and so we welcome any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's amazing that the need doesn't appear to be winding down, or is it that people are actually coming to the realisation that they live in a cold house and it could be improved to maximise their heating that they are putting into it. The 1,700 assessments over the last 12 months is actually almost a bit mind-blowing, really, because those people, did they all need insulation in their homes, Samara, or was that that they just thought they would see if they did?
Yeah, so most homes that we do visit, I'd say 90% do require something, at least insulation and heating. You'll be really surprised at the amount of homes that actually have no heating in their main living areas, or they have either little fan heaters or those gas heaters. So there's a huge need out there all over in Southland. The other thing I'd add is we have the largest homes per square metre and the oldest housing stock compared to the rest of the country. So, and the coldest climate. So, we've got all those things against us. And I suppose the other thing I'd want to add is, the Southland Warm Homes Trust, if you compare us to the rest of the country, we are the most organised in terms of ECA and how they deal with third-party funders, because the rest of the country, you've got all service providers that are kind of competing for all the funding, whereas Southland, as a whole, we're so organised, and I think that the system works really, really well. And that third-party funding that also goes into the pot for Southland Homes, we can leverage and access that to help our social services. So they come across whānau that actually can't afford that 5%. So we can, help get referrals, whereas other parts of the country, they don't quite have that access to a kind of a nice, organised trust that helps provide that. So the third-party funding is important, and it helps us leverage all the government funds. And that's what is the beauty of living in Southland, I think, because all different projects all across the region operate like that. So, well done to everyone that funds it and Southland Homes Trust. So, yeah.
Thank you.
As well as having trustee meetings, we also have project meetings where the different groups who are organised, like Well South, PHO, they come along and contribute to those project meetings. So, we're all heading in the same direction, and it's been a wonderful performance so far.
Do we have any idea of the scale of how many more houses there are to actually get in, be assessed or be assisted?
Yeah, so, we've been operating as Awaroa Synergy for going on 16 years, because Southland Homes is a few years after. There's roughly about 48,000 odd homes in Southland. So between the Southland Homes and us, there's probably about 9,000 to 10,000 that have been done, so about a fifth of our community. I don't have exact stats because there's also been other providers that do come into the region, but they don't do the volumes that we kind of do. So we have got a good idea that there is that. The other thing that is in the pipeline is the changing of the building consent, the Act, and the potential of the R value rating of the installation is going to be higher. So what that will also do is, as time goes on, they won't be meeting the building code. So it's kind of one of those things where I don't know when it will end, and even the government and the ministers are still trying to wrap their heads around exactly when the end date is in mind.
But what also perhaps we see occurring as well is that they may update the scheme. They have an annual review, and that what we found with Womakiwi Homes opened up another range of eligible people so we've had the community services card, but then sometimes all that requires is families to, if they have an impact on their income, and we did expect that following COVID that a lot of families might have become more eligible with their income being impacted. And there's also that socioeconomic area too. They have the ability to extend that if they see that the numbers are perhaps the leads are not coming through as quickly as they were expecting. So they are looking at the information, but it's a question we ask just about every year to ECA from the information that they might have, and with Smartia when we prepare our business plan. And ultimately, there's more demand than we have the resources to be able to complete that in the 12 months, what we see so far.
So I think over the years, our focus has changed a little bit. We've become quite adept at moving to meet the differing requirements of politicians have when it comes budget time. The criteria has changed a wee bit. Not so many years ago, it was all about rental properties and landlords having to upgrade. Now it's actually owner-occupiers. So we are very adept at changing tack pretty quickly just to carry out what we think is an essential service for our province.
Yes, and I suppose the big thing is having a plan to actually capture as much of that 2-year contract money that's sitting there from the government through ECA to bring it to Southland, I suppose. But yeah, limited by the number of days in the working days in the year, no doubt.
I think ECA's actually allocated at 1.4, just over 1.4 million contract for the year, that financial year that we're now in. So
that's right. So looking forward, they're putting the same support in. They can see the last 2 years we've achieved 500 to 550 homes of insulation. That compared to the previous scheme, which wasn't as well supported by the government with their level of funding, was a lot less. We only achieved 250. So the Warmer Kiwi Home Scheme is very popular with insulation as well as heating units as well, heat pumps and wood fires. So they have put that same support. I think we almost, based on the numbers of population in the region, we also perhaps probably get a higher portion than perhaps other regions do, but it's certainly well supported from ECA.
Thank you. We'll take it though, even though we're getting more.
Yeah, that's right. We exceeded the allocation for the current year we had, I think, 1.5 million allocated for the 2020-21. We exceeded that by 100,000. We applied for additional funding and we managed to get up to the 1.6 million we got up to. So they are prepared to listen there where we have the demand and the work. So.
Ideal. I understand, Councillor Harper, you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair. The heat pump and wood fires, the installation of those, I note, is only for new instalments. A lot of the older people have heat pumps and wood fires, been there for years and years, and they've passed their use-by date. Is there any consideration being given to funding for that?
Yeah, so part of the criteria is if you don't have any existing or your wood burner or more multi-fuel actually, or an old heat pump that's no longer working in the living area can be replaced through this subsidy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Councillor Kramer.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, this is a fantastic scheme, but also just want to comment that it's not just a reduction in the hospital doors that people go through, but it's far greater than that. And if you have a healthy home, children, they respond better to education. You'll have parents that are probably much happier in their own employment environment. You'll have the mental well-being also has an aspect to it as well. So I think from a holistic approach, it goes far wider than just the admissions that go to the hospital. So I think the domino effect of what you guys are doing, and some of those areas just aren't being measured and may be difficult to measure, but it certainly has that significant ongoing effect on our well-being of our communities. So excellent work, and as I say, it's far greater than just what's going through the hospitals. Great work, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kramer. Yes, that impact on the individual's budget would be huge, I would think, where you don't have unexpected hospital bills. Councillor Fraser.
Again, a comment of thanks and commendation. An area you haven't talked so much about in your presentation is the education you do. And having sat through some of your education with some of our clients, it was excellent and it's made a real significant difference. So yeah, big thanks for doing that work as well in the community.
So one of my passions is education on how to live in a healthy home. So putting the insulation in the heat pump or the wood burner in is just one part of it, which is an expensive part, which is fantastic, it's funded. But the other side of it is actually ensuring that you're reducing your moisture and everything else in the home, and you're utilising it the best you can. So I go out and I do quite a few workshops all over the province. We haven't had too many this year, but I think it's just kind of a bit of lockdown. But yeah, I really love that and enjoy it, and I do it for free wherever I can. So if anyone does want any workshops done in a workplace or any community groups, I'm more than happy to do that.
Thank you. That would be a really valuable resource to bring into community, because knowing how best to manage that so that you get best input from your expensive heat option or your heat option, which is usually expensive, will be fantastic. We have Councillor Menzies, then Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Great presentation. I'm just wondering about areas or houses that currently have heating, but the form of heating is not viable in the future. I'm thinking of the Ojai Nightcaps area with coal and the closure of the coal mine out there. What might be the opportunity through this process for them to change their heating to heat pump, or thinking about the fires you're putting in as well?
Yeah, so that is already currently underway. So anyone that meets the criteria, first off, they have to get the insulation done before they can access a heat pump or wood burner. So that's fine. We can replace that, retrofit. We can remove the old coal burner and put a new wood burner in if that's what they prefer.
So a workshop out in that area might be of benefit for those communities, and quite timely about now, given that has concerned a number of people in that community who've relied on the coal for, well, since the house was built, probably still got their coal ranges and things in some of them.
Yep, no, I'm more than happy to do that. I did attend one a few years back. I think it was to do with the fire brigade, or I can't quite recall, but yeah, I'm happy to go back out there. If anyone has groups that I can connect in with, because I can just go and slot into a group, you know, an event that's already happening. So, or
we might be able to link you into the community board out that way, who can arrange for that to happen. So that would be excellent. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Councillor Menzies. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh well, it's great news, the whole scenario, and it's that education aspect of it, which I really wasn't aware of as well. You sort of see there seems to be a growing tendency nowadays to dry washing inside, and people don't perhaps make the best use of pulling the curtains in the evening sometimes. It's a bit of a thing you learn from living in Southland, I guess, so that's valuable as well. I remember asking the last time you presented about the possibility of the use of wool insulation, and at that time I think there was a margin of price difference, and I can't remember whether that was about 10 or 20%. I understand that wool now is becoming much more competitive, and I just wonder if you do have a open view about alternative forms of insulation that are, in wool's case, a natural product, and getting away from the synthetic type of insulation.
Yeah, no, definitely. I absolutely love pushing wool, but unfortunately, because of the price and to leverage the government funding, we have to be kind of a bit practical in our costings. But yeah, you're right. That's probably something we need to revisit to see if the prices are a bit more competitive. So that product, Terra Lana, we get from Christchurch, and it's made with offcuts of recycled carpet. We also use Insul Pro product, which is a polyester made out of recycled plastic, which is fantastic. And we've got kind of like a pink bats, but it's yellow. And, you know, the technology of that has gotten a lot better, and that recycles glass. So, yeah, but I would prefer wool myself, but we've got to kind of utilise the government funds the best we can. So, but thank you for the reminder of potentially going back and having a look, reviewing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's something we can raise with ECA as well, put pressure on them to look at providing that subsidy across the more wool product as well.
They've always just come back about the cost difference, haven't they? As a keen wool grower, I share your comment, share your view there, Paul.
Yes, Councillor Duffy isn't a wool grower, but yes, some of the rest of us are. So we would be certainly happy to see that pressure being maintained and a fair price being charged. I don't believe there's any further questions. So thank you very much for your presentation, and hopefully we can get around those 1,700 assessments or assist them in some way in getting their homes insulated and taking advantage of any support that is available, but even just taking advantage of the getting your home insulated. I'm sure it's, as the statistics show, it's much better for everybody from hospitalisations, etc. So thank you very much for your presentation, and we will hear from you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Keith, there's 2 recommendations that he needs to
yes, we better move that through. So we aren't having Fiona Young is unavailable, I understand. So the recommendation is on page 16, and that we receive the reports and acknowledge the attendance of the representatives from Active Southland, Environment Southland and Southland Women's Homes Trust meeting. Do I have a mover for that, please?
I'm happy to move that, Madam Chair, but I see it's my document says Environmental Southland. It should be Environment Southland, shouldn't it?
Oh, yes.
Well, that will get changed.
Yeah. I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Mayor Tong, seconder.
I can second, Christine.
Thank you. Councillor Menzies. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And so from there, I will declare this meeting of the Community and Strategy closed and hand back over to Councillor Kramer. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Right, we'll reconvene the Services and Asset Committee meeting. And first of all, are there any apologies?
Just Councillor Byers.
Yeah, Councillor Byers, thank you.
The Councillor Byers put in an apology.
Yes.
Thank you.
We need a mover and seconder for that.
Yep, somebody like to move the acceptance of Councillor Byers' apology.
Oh,
thank you, Councillor Keast. I have a seconder. Councillor Fraser. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Any leave of absence requests?
Nope.
There being none. There's no conflict of interest of any of the papers that are being presented today. We don't have a public forum for this committee meeting. And are there any extraordinary urgent items?
No.
There being none. We go to confirmation of the minutes, and I'll move that those minutes are true and correct. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Margie. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried. Thank you. We'll go straight to item 7.2, which is the dust.
Oh, 7.1.
Sorry, I flicked over too far. My apologies. Good spotting. 7.1, Downer Water and Wastewater Maintenance Contract, monthly report. Mr. Witham, are you there?
I am.
There we go. I'll get you to present your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So August was a good month with no non-compliances on the water or the wastewater side, which is nice. We've included this month a revised version of the Downer report, which is more on the A3 format that you may be familiar with from the roading reports. But all the information presented is similar to previous months. So taking that as read, are there any questions arising?
Thank you for that. Any councillors got any questions or comments they would like to make? Councillor Owen.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the works that was stopped in Riverton. I've had lots of people asking me around what the archaeological find was. And I don't know if you can tell me.
That was on the project side of the business. Yeah, sorry, it was a small artifact was found which held the job up, but I'm not across the fine detail of that, but I could find out.
Thank you.
That would be useful if you can provide that feedback. That'd be great. Councillor Keast.
Thank you, Chair. Just a query from the monthly summary comment on page 17, where the ultra-fast broadband installation, I suppose it is causing us a few issues with strikes. Yes. Is that their problem, or is that just our mapping isn't that great?
A bit of both. So quite often, I mean, they're doing a lot of work, so they are going to hit a lot of stuff effectively for the amount of kilometres of fibre they're installing. But yes, it's very disruptive for us. We have to manage it carefully that it doesn't exceed our ability to repair the damage. But yeah, we're constantly in discussions with them to make sure that their methodology is appropriate and that they're doing everything they can to avoid our services. And in regards to the mapping, unfortunately, they are occasionally striking things that aren't on any plans, which, yeah, would have been difficult for them to avoid.
So from those ones that we aren't mapped, are we actually taking the opportunity to incorporate them into our system and make sure that we get the better picture best picture that we can?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keast. It was going to be my question as well. What are we doing to plan for the future? So, excellent question. Councillor Harper.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The graphs on page 19, Bill, are they pretty accurate, or I'm just a bit interested in the top left-hand one there with you got a Tautau water, Ojai nightcaps, to evaporate, even to Winton to extent. In the August, I take it was the August flow of water, you've just about used up 50% of your water intake compliance. That's according to the graphs. That sort of alarmed me a wee bit when we're not this time of the year, we're not using a lot of water. And how do we get on in the summertime? They'll be working to keep up. But
yeah, that's pretty accurate. So in August, that is how much of the allocation for that town we got through. In summer, yeah, we're pretty good. If we get a dry summer, we get pretty close in Ojai nightcaps, Wairio. Pre-COVID, a dry summer would get pretty close in Te Anau. There's also daily limits. So it's the daily limits that we struggle with more than the monthly average. That's normally not such an issue. But yeah, if you get a dry day over Christmas, New Year in Te Anau pre-COVID, you'd be getting close to the limit. And we track those if we have to. That's when you start seeing the sprinkler bans and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Coming out.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Menzies.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a comment that I noticed water leak in a street in Winton, and made the notification in on the system at 5:30, I think, on a Friday, and they were there looking at the issue at 9 o'clock on Monday. I thought that was very impressed. I was very impressed with that. So just I guess a positive comment.
It's always good to hear.
Thank you. Just a reminder, it's a 24/7 business. So there would have been assessment made that was minor enough that it could wait till Monday. But anything major is the call centre's 24/7, and the response would also be 24/7.
Just a comment from myself. I see the wastewater resource consent and also the drinking water compliance. They're all compliant at 100%, and there were no non-compliant tests during the month of August. So that tells me that our drinking water systems are at the best level that we possibly can under the regime that we're working under, and also with the wastewater as well. So good to see those sort of results for our infrastructure. Councillor Keast.
Thank you. Again, just a query following on from Councillor Menzies' comment there. So Bill, you've said that it's a 24/7, the 0800 number. Does that work? Is it as effective we're using the Anteno app, or is it best to the phone system for the 24/7?
If it's urgent, the phone system is more effective, because that goes up to the call centre in Palmerston North, and they have to find a human on the end of a phone. So they keep going till they get hold of an operator. And if for any reason they can't get hold of an operator, they'll end up talking to myself or one of the other water managers. So yeah, if something's gone bang, please ring the 0800 number. If it's less urgent or during the week, the Anteno app, because that goes through the comms department, and then has to be loaded into the system. So there's that extra step, that extra lag there to consider.
Okay. Councillor Menzies, you still got your hand up. Did you have a further question?
Sorry, I just forgot to put it down.
That's okay. I don't want to miss it. No other questions or comments? There being none, we have the recommendation, and I'll move the recommendation that we received a report. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Douglas. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, I think that before we start the next paper of the dust sufficient, let's take a 10-minute break, so we can go offline if you want to grab a coffee, and we'll see you back here, say about 22, and we'll see you then.
Can everybody mute, please?
Yep.
Pause. Right. Ken, you can. Right, everybody ready?
Right, everybody's got their cup of coffee, or are we back live streaming, Jan?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll go back to our agenda, which is item 7.2, dust suppression option, and Hartley here, you're there, so you can present your paper. Thank you, Hartley.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, councillors. So yeah, this report mentioned it covers the dust suppression. As we know, dust nuisance was a common theme throughout the long-term plan submission process. Officers then present a report to the committee on the 24th of August, which is attachment A in the report, that just regarding options for dust suppression. Subsequently, we've undertaken further investigation works into the establishment of a prioritisation process for subsidised semi-permanent dust applications, along with consideration of a process for non-subsidised applications. It is proposed that we adopt the Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency criteria for calculating site dust risk score. So that comprises of 12 factors which are considered in that risk assessment, and then each of the factors in essence fall into one of three key categories, that being traffic, the number of cars and trucks, and the speed environment, and then receptors, so houses, schools, and that's within 80 metres of the road reserve, so putting a distance limit around it. And then the third is the site characteristics, so the location of the road and whether it's subject to aspects such as logging, being part of a logging route. We take that dust score in essence, and then carry out the assessment of where that property or section may fall in terms of a point scale system, 0 upwards, and then basically anything that scores 10 points or higher, it's identified that there may be a benefit to applying a dust suppressant. In order to, I suppose, assist with network management and obtain some synergies for our contractors in doing the work, it is proposed that there's a formal application be made on an annual basis by the end of July each year, similar to what we do for our spraying. And this will provide an opportunity to assess the applications, create a priority list that's in line with the funding available, and then also look at whether there's any sections, say close to sealed roads, etc., that we may need to put together to create a contiguous section, just from a network management point of view. This also gives an opportunity for those that don't make the list to be able to go back to them and present options around being for applicants to 100% fund the application if they haven't made the list, or they can, in essence, have another go the following year. A couple of things probably to note on that. With any type of prioritisation and funding criteria, there's obviously a risk that the volume of applications or interest that we receive exceeds the budget available at any given point in time, or that with the rating type system, not everybody meets in essence, the minimum criteria. So in this case, the score of 10 or greater for the subsidy, and that could obviously result in dissatisfaction from applicants. As you're aware, the final funding approval that we received from Waka Kotahi for our overall program, in particular the element that we apply for around dust, was significantly greater than when we presented the first report. And that's resulted in us having a budget approved by NZTA of just short of $950,000 over the 3-year period. So this has given us an opportunity. So this, the increase in budget from when we presented the previous report has effectively allowed for the opportunity for a greater subsidy to be available. And on that basis, it is proposed that applicants will be required to contribute $8,000 for 150 metre treatment length per household. And then between council and the Waka Kotahi funding, we'll look at making up the remainder of the cost for the application. It's also proposed that for the first year that we set aside $20,000 and utilise this for legal costs, including the establishment of a standard agreement and specification, which will set out then the maintenance and renewal responsibilities for these longer term dust treatments. So it's clear on both parties, both for council and the applicants, where things sit and how the process might work in the future. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell, but happy to take any questions or discussions on
it. Okay, thank you, Hartley. This was well discussed at last forum, and since then I had that meeting with management, and we've pulled this together for discussion. I see there's a number of hands up, so I'll refrain from making any further comments until I hear from my colleagues. So the first up is Councillor Ruttnclaw.
Through you, the Chair, thank you. Great to see you just coming forward. My question around the time for the summer, and we're talking 2022, July, where are we going to be placed this summer? How can we get it up and running so people can apply it?
Sorry, yeah, that was, I think I got some of that. I was breaking up a little bit, but if I understood the question correctly, it related to considering we're so far into this season, how would we address the issue in the first year? On that, we proposed, obviously depending on approvals from council, we're looking at running a bit of a modified system where we'd get out as soon as possible to advise that people can apply, and then assess that the sites. Ideally, we'd look at having that all done pre-Christmas, with then the looking at post-Christmas actually doing some physical works. But some of that will be contingent, obviously, on council approval. But that's a plan for this year, to run as quickly as we can a modified system or process pre-Christmas.
Thank you, Hartley. My question around it too, sorry, I'll just continue, sorry, Abel. 3 months is a long time looking at this summer. When we've got people, I've sent a letter around, you would have received it this morning, from a ratepayer. Is there any way we can speed the process up for these people that are physical, mental health, animal health? Is there any way we can make that process go faster?
There's probably two elements that sort of come to mind. One is around the time it may take to actually get the agreements and the process up and running, and then from a criteria point of view around being equitable and actually advertising to everybody and allowing everybody at the same time with a set date to apply. And I mean, and I'm happy to have a discussion or get guidance on that, but we allowed for a month advertising, a month then, or even shorter time frame, but say a month to process and go through the applications. That's 2 months gone straight away, and then still to round back. So yes, while I do appreciate that 3 months is a long time, there's still I suppose a practical element of trying to implement it, plus getting the standard specifications and an agreement set up. So hopefully from that, I mean, we can look at running a shorter time frame, but there's other risks associated with that too, in terms of not everybody having the opportunity to apply in year one.
Yeah, and also there's also the factor of whether the contractors have the physical capabilities between now and that time frame. I'd like to just call on to Mr. Russell. I see he's got his hand up. Happy for you to make comment now, Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, it was just really to reiterate the comments from Hartley regarding the aspiration to get the work underway ahead of this summer season. Given this is a policy position that's been established only through this LTP, the work that's been necessary to get to this point and the work necessary, as Hartley's indicated, to get to a position where we can undertake the work. A couple other things to consider is that the equipment that we would be utilising to undertake the semi-permanent seal is the same equipment that we would be utilising to undertake our other commitments through our alliance contracting and our roading program. So if we were to reprioritise the semi-permanent seal for a small number of ratepayers this season, given our timing constraints, we would be preventing other contract works across our entire network being able to be undertaken. So look, our sense is the earliest this construction season that we would be able to be undertaking any of this work would be at the tail end of the season, effectively missing the driest part of the season, unfortunately.
So, if I may, Mr. Russell, what would be preventing a property owner to make direct contact with a contractor and saying, I would like my piece of 150 metres auto sealed, and whether that contractor can fit that in? Can that occur sooner rather than later? And I appreciate that we have to look at the entire network, and I also appreciate that if you have, say, for example, 5 landowners in a short distance, that you could have sections of auto seal and back into tar, into gravel, and then auto seal. That creates some difficulties as well. So I do understand that situation. So I just want to get an appreciation from your view as to how realistic that possibility may be.
So from my perspective, Mr. Chair, a couple of things there. The predominant action required before we could facilitate that is the agreement piece, the specification, but it would, in the instance of an individual or a ratepayer wanting to fund that totally on their own, that would bypass the application, the prioritisation process, the assessment process, the works programming by us and with our contractors across other priorities. So that would shorten that timeline in that scenario from my perspective. Of course, the only caveat there being contractor availability to undertake the work. Hartley, is there anything that you want to add to the mix there?
No, I think that covers it off. It will come down to contractor availability, and as you say, just the agreement element of being able to set that up.
Okay, I'll open up to the councillors again. I see there's a numerous number of hands up, so I can see them, and I can assure you I'll connect with every one of you. Margaret, sorry, Councillor Rotten-Claw, you hadn't quite finished your questioning, I believe.
Yeah, no, thank you, through you, the Chair. I appreciate your comments, Hartley and Matt. Thinking about our other small contractors in Southland, wouldn't it be a great opportunity for one of the other small contractors, this is just off the top of my head, to start a little business or become a big business of being the otter seal contractors in Southland, and then it's not all top heavy on these bigger contractors that we use on our roading network?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Yes, it would be. I think one of the biggest issue probably around it, and why we've particularly down this end of the country only got 2 real suppliers of it, is the capital investment up front for the specialised gear, because it uses the same equipment that we use for our resurfacing. And so you end up with Fulton Hogan and Downer really being the only ones with the spraying equipment. And part of that is because it's not equipment that you can use 365 days of the year. It's generally limited over the summer months, but it has got a significant capital outlay. And so that, it tends to limit the market availability.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hartley. Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be quite concerned about this problem, and certainly after the LTP submission process, that people were very concerned about that. And whilst we are doing this from a funding perspective, I think there's much more than that to it. There's a health perspective to that. People are getting their water supplies contaminated, and we have obligations in that respect. And certainly the timescale that's being suggested by staff, I think, requires a bit more attention. We're contaminating people's gardens, the whole damn lot. I believe it should be delivered as fast as possible. And really, if I was in that position with that contamination, I would spray with oil and break the rules. So, that would be safer than having my people go to hospital with breathing problems and the rest of it. So I think it's a very important situation that we're in. It needs to be addressed as fast as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. I would just caution you, if you were in that position, that you would breach the laws of New Zealand. So I'd be just pass on a little bit of caution for you for your own personal benefit. And I understand the urgency that you place on it and people's well-being and health, but there's also internal process to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. And then, if at the end of the day, we need to, if you're signaling that we need to reprioritise our LTP, in particular to our roading, that will be a totally different discussion. Anyway, Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we all know that oil is effective for suppressing dust, but it's not permitted. So I do take that point. Otter seal is effective but expensive. Are there any other alternatives? I'm directing this question to the staff. Are there any other viable alternatives that we are currently considering?
Mr. Chair, so not from our perspective. I mean, there have been other treatments trialled or provided by private suppliers, but they have had mixed results. And from a cost effectiveness point of view, otter sealing or full sealing from a long-term point of view is still the most cost-effective method of dealing with dust, because you also get particularly with the otter sealing and full sealing, you get a 365-day-a-year benefit, as opposed to some of the other products where they require regular reapplying or only effective potentially over the summer months.
So, thank you, Harley. So in terms of oil, we know that ES have ruled it out. Is that just ES, or is that all regional councils throughout the country?
I'm not sure if it's all regional councils, but it's definitely a majority of them. I wouldn't be brave enough to say all, but a significant amount have. I know the neighbouring regional councils have.
So just in relation to Councillor Ruddenclaw's query, this couple seems to be in dire need, and oil is would suppress the dust and give them quality of life. Is there any way in which they could make application for consent to ES that you're aware of that could allow them to apply oil?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. There's probably question better directed to ES. Don't believe I'm in a position to, provide an informed comment on that as to how successful or otherwise they may be on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps worth noting there are more environmentally friendly, viable alternatives to oil that ES are touting as a substitute. So there is still a dust suppressant treatment option available to our residents. However, as has been previously discussed around the table, perhaps not as effective as oil and costly in nature. Look, the only other comment I'd add is that in the past we have trialled other products. Remember, a couple of years ago we trialled a clay binding treatment that was unfortunately unsuccessful, and so we continue to keep our eye out in the innovation space around what applications and products are available in the market. And at this stage, unfortunately, the options are fairly limited.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just to comment on to Councillor Douglas, any alternative options. I'm helping a farmer at the present time, lives on a gravel road, and he's looking at a sprinkler system. He's going to put in an extra couple of 5,000 gallon tanks, and he's putting sprinklers system on either side of his road and go straight over it, and he's doing that during his dust suppression. I'm yet to advise him of the potential cost of auto seal, and then he'll do a comparison. But there's certainly people looking at different ways of how they can keep that dust down. So one way is putting water on the road. So he's having a look at that. Mr. Russell, is there any possibility that Environment Southland could relax their current stance on oiling roads for a season at all?
Through you, Mr. Chair, without wanting to speculate, I would think that it's unlikely.
Good.
But of course, we can ask the question.
Yeah, maybe that's something we could do. I've got Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Certainly support all of the previous councillors' questions, especially around the timing with the health implications that we're getting for our residents. And a couple of questions around that too. Just the 150 metre length that's been determined, has that kind of been measured on, because I know on some of the straighter roads, you might actually, on a windy day, you might actually get that dust blowing for a reasonable length. So just a question around how that 150 metres was determined, and is that a sort of a cover-all kind of length for all circumstances?
So I suppose we had originally started off with 100 metres, looking at some other policies that are around the place, but also when we've spoken to our contractors around sort of what they generally are looking at allowing for, it tended to be a bit close to that 150 metre length. But to your point, it is also trying to recognise that, as you say, travelling along, generating the dust, and if that 100 metres, say if it was 100 metres just in front of the property, you could still have a flow-on effect of that dust, I suppose, blowing down the road in essence and across the property. So hence the 150 metres. There's no science behind the 150 metres because, as you rightfully point out, there's other factors that can influence it. But at some point, there's also, from an analysis element, where we have to draw, I suppose, a line in the sand or make a stance, and you can go longer, but that impacts on the costs, and or shorter. So we believe 150 metres is a reasonable starting point or point to draw a line in the sand. And I suppose that's where councils say contribution could limit is to 150 metres, but if the applicant wanted to do 300 metres, we could potentially consider that, but the additional cost sits with them potentially. So, yeah, that's where we've landed. Our recommendation for council contribution is 150 metres. But, yeah.
So that's the council contribution, but it does not prevent the landowner to pay for more if they would have 200 metres. That's what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, good. Does that answer your question, Councillor Scott?
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple more, if that's all right, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely, absolutely.
On some of these roads, they've got like a commercial operation at the end of it, a lot of commercial operators are using and generating a lot of the dust. So is there an opportunity to sort of involve them in the pricing on it to get a contribution from them if they are a heavy user of the road?
It's not something we've considered. I'd potentially caution on that just because the way our roading rate model is set up, that we, in essence, are already collecting some funding from them for the type of operation and in essence, the impact that's occurring on our roading network as a whole.
Could be a good neighbourly thing to be doing for that contractor. So I don't think you should discard it. I think that this item had been raised previously, and I don't think it would do any harm even just to approach and ask and see where it lands. Councillor Scott, you have more questions.
Yep, just two more.
That's right.
From the affordability point of view, is there the opportunity for people to put the $8,000 onto their rates and pay it off over an extended period of time for those that can't actually afford the upfront cost of it?
I'll ask the Finance Department to respond to that. Susan?
So we did talk about it a little bit at the last meeting, but unfortunately what we've discovered as we've continued looking into it, most of the councils that had some form of voluntary rate have currently suspended those for what is currently a legal review being undertaken as to whether we can actually do those. We will continue looking in to see what mechanism they're using and whether there's something else, but it looks like anywhere where there has been a voluntary dust suppression rate or a healthy homes rate or anything along those lines, the mechanisms that they have been using aren't stacking up at the present.
And lastly, just with relation to the timing side of it again, is the idle seal subject to the same temperature requirements as a normal seal, so it's got to be done in that sort of short window, or is it something that can be sort of done in the off season going forwards?
So ideally still through that peak or the ideal construction season, not in winter. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if you've finished your questions, I see Councillor Douglas, you still got your hand up. If you do have questions, that's fine. I can see there's still numerous councillors wanting to ask questions, so be patient, we'll get to you. Councillor Menzies.
Thank you, Chair. Some of mine have already been answered, so that's good. I kind of appreciate that we're hearing a lot more issues around dust suppressant from our ratepayers because they have in the past used oil, which is effective, and with the replacement options, they are not effective and also quite costly. So I think it's really helpful to have the criteria in place that's along with this report. It gives an objective look and at where people might be in terms of priority. And I'm wondering around that. One is, will all ratepayers be able to ask for an assessment and who are affected by dust and know where they might be in that priority, which might give them the impetus to do this privately if they know that they are a score of 10 as opposed to the 500 properties that might be between 12 and 15?
So yes, that is exactly what we intend with the process, and hence why on an annual basis, effectively calling for applications with a closing date of the end of July, because then people can lodge their application and interest, and we can carry out that assessment and therefore be able to then inform people whether you're, in essence, made the list from a priority point of view, or you've fallen outside the list for the season, and therefore you want to have another attempt next year, or would you like to proceed by yourself and 100% fund the application? So
thank you, Hartley. And for this season,
we intend running.
You may get a lot of interest expressed from tomorrow on about this. They won't be waiting till next July for that process, but to do it, what's the capacity to be able to do those assessments before Christmas if you've got a huge expression of interest?
So that's I suppose what I try to cover off earlier in terms of following today. If there was agreement on the recommendations, that then we could look at establishing the specification and the agreement, allow us to advertise for an expression of interest and carry out then the prioritisation pre-Christmas, and then allow for that the physical works element to be carried out post-Christmas. That's not quite from a mathematical point of view, but effectively allowing a month. So a month to get the specification agreement drawn up, a month for advertising, and a month for assessment.
Oh, thank you. That's there will be a lot interested in being able to get that assessment done before Christmas, I anticipate. The second thing is with the criteria, it said NZTA is not considering roof water as they think it's a double counting with dust in houses, but I would suggest they're two different issues, that if you've got your water provision coming off the roof, as opposed to if you don't, but you've still got the dust issue, aren't they two different things?
So one of the reasons why it's excluded specifically is that for that point, if you look at some of the descriptors in the attachments, it talks about ecological sensitive areas. So whether that's the impact on dust, on health, on crops, it's trying to recognise all of that rather than saying, well, because it's dust on, say, for drinking water as opposed to dust on crops, there's still an ecological impact on it or from it. And so if you're counting twice because it's a house within 80 metres, then you're recounting because it's going to have an impact on the drinking water. Well, we've already recognised there's an impact by setting that 80-metre perimeter.
I was thinking particularly of the health and safety impact of drinking water that's contaminated with a significant amount of dust, while still recognising that other aspect you just referred to as well.
I'm not sure, but totally understand, because the point of, I suppose, setting the 80-metre parameter is recognising that there is a dust impact for any properties 80 metres or closer. So we're already saying, yep, we recognise if you're within 80 metres, you're going to be impacted by dust.
Yeah.
So if we said, well, you're impacted by dust, and then you're impacted by dust relating to your drinking water, we've already said you're impacted by dust because you're within 80 metres.
Okay.
On that.
It's all right. I rather than confuse everybody else, including myself, I just suggest that be re-looked at, and if it's already included in there, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, just requires a bit of fine-tuning. Councillor Keast.
Thank you. Nice segue in, Councillor Menzies, because this Wakakatahi dust, site dust risk factors and scores is obviously written by somebody who has never sat through, been in a house that has dust coming off the road beside it. The fact that they dismiss there's no element of health impacts in there. They're just saying, oh, if it's dust, well, some people are far more sensitive to it, or they become more sensitive to it depending on their overall health. The water supply is quite another matter, because if somebody doesn't have has an alternative water supply, the impact on their overall impact on them is not so high, because you don't get the dust falling into your then you have to drink it situation. The other thing there, that a less than 100 cars a day is a 0 rating, is just beyond the pale as far as I'm concerned. You'd only need a car going past every 15 minutes and it would have a severe impact on your life. You know, even if you've got trees to filter it, it's still, they've just got no idea. It will be really interesting to see how many people qualify under this scenario, because I see that they're saying where it's greater than 70 kilometres an hour, was it? I think. Well, at 70 kilometres an hour, it's probably slightly less than 100, but not much. I mean, if cars are only doing 20, you limit it. Or vehicles are only, or they've got their one for, you score one, a risk factor of 1 for a heavy vehicle doing 20 kilometres an hour. Well, maybe. Yeah, as I say, they've never sat through it.
You get
I urge caution on it, because I just think that we might need to get some reality to Wakakataui about what they, about their assessment of the impact, really.
Okay, thank you. Hartley, you want to make any comment on that?
I think to that point, whether we shift the ratings up or lower the speed or change those bands, at the end of the day, I suppose those with the higher traffic volumes, the higher speed limits, are still going to obtain a higher score.
Yep.
So from an overall prioritisation point of view, I don't know that it'll make a significant difference, at least not at this point in time.
But you know, just in support of Councillor Keith's comment, I mean, you get a heavy truck, you have a truck and trailer carting stock doing 20 k's per hour, creates far more greater dust than a vehicle going past doing 55 k's an hour. So there is a bit of reality that needs to be understood.
That's correct, and there is an allowance for heavy vehicle activity.
Yep, I see that. Yep. Okay, your concerns have been noted, Councillor Keith, and we need to keep them in our sight, so to speak. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Keith? Oh, no, she's locked up there. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a number of varying comments and some questions, perhaps. So just going back to that Wakakatahi format, or whatever you would call it, I noticed that they're specifically mentioning logging trucks. And I think that if that's going to be used as a guide, there needs to be a wider consideration of things like gravel quarries and farms that sell grass and those other sorts of enterprises, not only logging trucks. I wonder if there's any value in having a distance from the road aspect to that. Like, we are talking 80 metres, but a house that's at 40 metres must have a greater problem. I see they are talking about location, so I guess that's sort of counting whether they're on the windward side or the other. But, and then just on the timing of our implementation of it, my thinking is that we're better to take a bit more time and get it right. It's a very complex issue we're dealing with here, and I would hate to see it rushed. And there was all the reasons that Matt and Hartley have given around contractors and all those other aspects. I think just taking a bit of time to get it right, and particularly the fairness aspect and all those things. And I mean, generally in Southland, it's still raining till Christmas anyway. And if we get those summer drier months covered, that's probably the priority. I know that there's people with all kinds of problems, but some of them won't mind a bit longer if it's going to mean that what they get put in place is actually something that's sort of viable. just talking about, I had a guy ring me yesterday, and he was saying he actually put down the alternative that EnviroSouth are using, and he was thrilled with it. And he was disappointed, and it went down in February, and it just was great. And he was disappointed in July when it got graded up. So he would use it again, no trouble, which just makes me realise that we mustn't give up on the innovation side of it and looking at alternatives that one day might work. And AutoSeal being in that toolkit as well, of course, but we shouldn't give up on other sort of research. That's one question. There is talk about oil, and going back to Environment Southland, which is a fair enough question to ask. I just wonder if oil is used and we go to AutoSeal afterwards, does that have a detrimental effect on the AutoSeal or any other alternative that's applied? Does that actually impede the effectiveness of AutoSeal at a later date? And I just think we need to remember when we're talking oil and talking water tanks that probably the most dangerous thing for health is dust coming off an oil road once the oil's given up and going into a water tank. Anyway, that's me.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy. Some very valid points there. I'd like to say, let's do it once and let's do it and let's get it right. And I think it's important that it is achieved. Councillor Owen.
Right, unmute. Right. Thank you very much. Just listening to all the questions and queries raised, just occurs to me that maybe we need to think about whether some of those recommendations need to allow a little bit more flexibility, given that you're essentially going to attempt to run quite a quick process in council terms to try and get some solutions on this season. I'd hate to see you tied up in, some of the guidelines being too tight and more discretion needed, particularly with regards to the 150 metres. Like in some situations, it may be viable to do and practical to do less. In some situations, you might want to do more. So just wanting to check that you don't want some more flexibility in some of those recommendations to allow you to be more adaptive as to what applications come in and enable you to move quickly rather than having to wait to come back to another meeting to get something changed.
Thank you for that. Good comments. Any, Mr. Russell, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really valid points, Councillor Owen, and just a reminder to the committee as well, as per the report, we still need to come back to council, and we're intending on doing so on the 27th of October to work through the implications of the unbudgeted expenditure and the various costs and funding mechanisms and options associated with funding this new approach. So there's still a little bit to work through in that regard as well.
So it provides an opportunity to massage some of those recommendations as suggested by Councillor Owen. So that gives you that opportunity to do that. Councillor Runniclaw.
Through you, the Chair, thank you. A lot of my queries and conversations have been said by the councillors, but I'd like to endorse what both Councillor Keast and Duffy have said. Every day is different in rural Southland. I live 150 metres, from a gravel road, and I know how bad it is here. I'm not going to put AutoSeal down, but it still can get into air spoutings. I'd also like to endorse your comment, Councillor Kramer, around having a conversation with Environment Southland going forward for the summer, seeing if we can get a more affordable solution, because it's becoming, I know it's environmental as we all are too, but human health is as important as the health of our waterways, our pastures, our roadsides, and our animal health as well. So I'd like to endorse that comment as well. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any further questions, comments. So that being the case, I'm prepared to move the recommendations as set out in the document from A to K. Do I have a seconder for those motions, please? There being no second.
I'll second. I'll happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy has second. I see Mr. Russell has his hand up and he's not just scratching his ear, he wants to say something.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, and apologies for the late question as you're about to put the motion. But thought I'd just sneak in there and seek clarification from a staff perspective. We heard a suggestion earlier in the conversation that we should be engaging with Environment Southland around an extension or perhaps an exemption to the application of oil. We then heard some further discussion around the health concerns and considerations around the application of oil and the driver to remove it, both from a health and environmental perspective from our network in the first instance. Just to ensure we're walking away from this discussion with clarity and operating on the advice from the committee, can I just seek clarification as to whether or not that's a conversation we are having with ES or not?
My understanding is that I would expect that there will be an approach from Southland District Council to ES, and you have that discussion, and at the council meeting I would expect you will give us formal feedback at that time. Verbally would be fine rather than written, but give us that feedback after you've spoken to Environment South. I don't think it requires a resolution. I think it would be an understanding from this committee that the matters that we have discussed and have raised, you've got a bit of a steer on some of those, and that you follow up on one or two of those items that we've discussed and report back at the full council meeting. Is that good? Any further? Councillor Keast.
Thank you. Just a comment really around the cost of the existing applying for the existing treatments that are available. A huge part of that is the fact that Environment Southland required the company to get a global consent so that they can go and put the lay this stuff down wherever. To me, it's that need for them to even be involved. If the global consent is provided, I don't see why they couldn't have just put the rules out, had people say, you know, come to us, we advise them that what the rules are in terms of conditions, where you can put it down and where you can't put it down. And if they meet that criteria, they could go and apply it themselves. But they've created this business, really, that can only be, they're the only ones that have got a consent to actually do it. So the company has. And so it's almost like they're creating a bit of a barrier there. There would be other alternatives if they would just say, these are what the rules are, and be prepared to follow up with people if they didn't apply that product in the manner that it should be. But it's commentary around taking that thought process to see if there could be any relaxation of that through their system when we're talking to them. Thank you.
Yep. No, thank you for that, and I'm sure that Mr. Russell will take those comments on board. Now, I have put the motion. However, I do see Councillor Owen's hand up. I will provide you with that opportunity, but this is the last question before I put the recommendations.
Thank you. Just for clarification for Matt on his question around what our expectations were regarding the discussion with Environment Southland, my suggestion is that that could result in, when the information goes out to people with the opportunity to apply, that they're also given other information on what the other options are, whether it's, you know, water spraying or various other options that that the households, so that they don't just immediately go, it's $8,000, can't afford that, I've got to suffer, so that they've got full information on what all the other options are for them in front of them.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Well, I think we've had a very robust discussion on this particular topic, and it's been exceptionally useful. So I've put the motion, and I have a second for that, and so I'll put it now. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those against? Those motions are carried. Thank you for that. Excellent discussion. We'll move on to item 7.3, road operations. And I see Mr. Rob Hayes will be presenting that. So, Mr. Hayes, have the opportunity to present your paper, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and councillors. Road operations report, July and August 2021. I'll take the report as read and just run through a couple of items of highlight there. Waka Kotahi NZ Transport Agency have confirmed their additional funding of the 6.9 million, which is the combined value, Waka Kotahi and NZTA value. The additional funded has been spread over many funding categories, but the road rehabilitation and bridging takes a lion's share, just over 50% of that. Another funding activity of note is the footpaths, which was severely impacted down to a very minimal value of about $100,000, has now been increased to $550 over the 3-year period, which is great news. So we're currently working away to reviewing programs, and we'll get back to the community boards in due time with new contract items. Bridging wise, WSP have completed their first year of the new contract with pleasing results. The key performance requirements of the contract indicated of the 82.5% score, which is incredibly pleasing. So we intend to initiate a 2-year extension with the possibility of a second extension after that of 3 years to make a total of 6. COVID-19, once again, hitting us this year in August, severely knocking the operations in August. 1 week, basically, operations stopped and then phasing in over through levels 3 into 2. RFSs just with a slightly increase through July, still with the over-reliance with the that logging traffic, which had quite an impact. Now settling down, a lot of maintenance work being done, and the dry weather's put a lot of that to bed. Pavement rehabilitations, 4 of the 5 contracts are out to market and ready to award, just 1 still to go out. Bridge-wise, for the replacement program, we've got 6 bridge design and build package out due to close next week. So there was a number of sites there. So we're looking forward to that, getting underway with some more bridges. That's about it. If there's like any questions, or refer to the A3s. Happy to take questions.
Just before I open it up, have any idea what the real impact on the deliverables will be, considering the implications of COVID?
Through you, Mr. Chair, with it being early in the season and during the winter months, I don't think there'll be any effect in reality. We'll catch up on all activities that have been impacted. In fact, we probably already have.
Okay, that sounds great. We'll remind you of that at the end of the year. All right, any questions, comments? There being none.
One.
Oops, sorry, Councillor Scott, sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just following on from your question, do you foresee any risk if there was to be a COVID level change during that narrow window of the season for the work program, and would that have a dramatic impact on actually getting that work done?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly would have an impact. One positive thing is we're in the first year of the LTP, so we would be able to hopefully claw that back. But yeah, if we had a lockdown February, March, it would have a significant impact.
Councillor Duffy. Yeah, you're still on mute. Oops. You're on mute and you've disappeared.
I'm having great technological difficulties. Sorry.
That's all good.
You mentioned footpaths, Rob. It's not my area, but it just makes me wonder. I remember the presentation in the LTP submissions about that eastern end of that Palmerston Street footpath in Riverton. 3 of us councillors actually looked at that when we were in Riverton for another matter. I think that's a pretty serious issue that we should be providing a better service. And I'm wondering now with the increase in the funding, if that's something that could come onto the radar.
Through Mr. Chair, I'd have to follow up on that specific site because we, sort of Rob alluded to, we had developed a program and budgets on the around the LTP with our particularly the renewals through the initial funding approval from NZTA that literally got slashed down to about 10%, which is very minimal. We're talking across the entire district on around $70,000 a year. And so we've had to revisit the whole program. And so with the increase in funding, obviously as indicated is good news, we're having to go back to the program again. So where that particular street sits off the top of my head, I couldn't advise. I'd have to follow up on that. I'm happy to email that information out.
Okay. Thank you for that. It'd be good if you do follow up that and provide Councillor Duffy with your findings, please. If you deal with him direct, that would be very useful. Thank you. No other questions, Councillor Duffy?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Menzies and also Mayor Tong, but I have Mr. Russell wishing to make comments. I'll, Mr. Russell, give you the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in relation to Councillor Duffy's comments regarding the eastern end of Palmerston, I recall that specific submission and through the LTP, and it instigated a bit of an assessment amongst the team of effectively all of our urban environments, the boundaries associated with our urban environments, and a comparison across other parts of our network and district. And it was found that almost every urban environment has examples of gravel networks and inconsistencies in footpath application across our network. And look, the policy position effectively to date has been no additional ceiling of the carriageways themselves. So if that was something that council or that this committee rather wish for staff to revisit, we're interested to hear about that. In relation to the footpaths, you may recall from each of the workshops that were held in the lead up to the LTP with each of the various community boards, we staff workshopped both level of service and renewals, values and totals and priorities across the various settlements across the district, and we were guided by input from community boards in their capacity or ability to fund level of service improvements from a footpath network perspective. And what we found was in a lot of instances, given the age and condition of our existing footpath networks, a lot of the local budgets were consumed in simply maintaining and having to maintain and renew what we already have, versus investing significant amounts of capital in new level of service footpaths. But some communities, more so than others, had the capacity to invest based on existing condition of the local networks. But what we're doing on an annual basis with the budgets that have been established for both renewals and for new level of service footpaths where they have been established is ahead of each financial year as part of the project scoping and works program development, meeting with each community board to ascertain or recommend areas for both renewal and for new level of service, and working that through with the community board. So that this year was the first year that was undertaken, and I understand there was some to and fro around some areas and some tension applied around those discussions. And it's our hope that as we move forward, we'll improve that process, improve the engagement, and ensure that the local community's view on priorities for investment for both renewals and for new level of service areas are driving the application or the investment decisions made around those programs.
Thank you, Mr. Russell, for that. That's appreciated. Councillor Menzies.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question around with the increase in funding, whether that offers an opportunity to relook at the closed bridges or any of them being reopened in the future, though I appreciate that may be well down the track, but just some response to that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Definitely through, Chair. So yeah, no, that definitely does change the priority for the next 3 years. It won't so much impact on the first year because, as we already indicated, we've already gone out to market with our package, but definitely in terms of the work program for year 2 and 3, we'll definitely be reconsidering some of those closed bridges and where they sit in the priority list.
Thank you. The community's concerned. We're pleased to hear that.
Excellent. It's good. No, Mayor Tong, you did have your hand up, no longer required.
I did, but the question's been answered, and yeah, just a big thumbs up for getting those bridges underway. That's fantastic. Looking forward to that. Now I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor Tong. Do I have a second for those recommendations, please? Councillor Menzies. Excuse me?
Councillor Duffy put his hand up looking like he's wanting to ask another question.
Oh, my apologies, Councillor Duffy.
That's quite all right. It's not actually a question, it's just a comment. I don't think I'll ever understand those condition performance graphs.
We'll arrange a one-on-one tuition for you.
It might have to stay the night, I think.
It's got some benefits.
I'm happy to second the motion if no one else has.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. Thank you. All those against? Carried. Thank you very much. The next item is 7.4, Service and Assets Program, which is on page 51 of your agenda. Mr. Brendan Gray. No, sorry, team, we're not hearing you at all. No, you there, guys?
That came on.
We can see you, but we can't hear you.
You might have to shoot across the hall, chaps. Yep. We'll go across there.
All right, they're just going to shoot across the hall.
Jump to 7.5, Mr. Chair. Oh, you can't because Jeff's coming across.
Correct. So we'll just wait. It won't take long. It's only a small hall. For young people, they'll get there very quickly.
Good morning. Apologies, Mr. Chair and councillors. For some reason, my computer has decided I could hear everyone, but that was about it. So I'll present today's report, and Brennan is here for any further questions.
So just to talk to the main body of the reports, as Rob and the transport team have obviously already stated, while the year has started reasonably well, the few weeks of lockdown in level 4 and level 3 has definitely had an effect. But what is of greater effect at the moment is actually resources and materials. So as Rob alluded to in his report, while we had that shutdown, the actual amount of physical work we actually had in place at that stage was not as great as it would be if it was right in the middle of the main contracting season. Obviously, the main areas of delay were related to the TIF the three water stimulus funding projects, which were obviously the AC water main replacement. So all of that work is still now well advanced and on track to be delivered within this year. However, DIA have given us an indication that they're likely to give us 2 extra months to complete that work through to June next year. So look, we'll continue to monitor those projects as the year progresses. As I said, resources and materials definitely seem to be the biggest constraint for us at the moment. In regards to the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, all those projects are now progressing well through initiation, design, and then obviously into some of them are out to tender. In regards to a couple of the key projects that we're seeing delays on, Winton Library is one where we've been having difficulty sourcing joinery and plywood materials, as well as the Terramea Bay toilets due to resource availability to start that project. And also we didn't want to end up starting a project and taking an asset out over the Christmas break. So really looking at making sure that we don't create more issues during the main season. Obviously, the Te Anau wastewater project has recommenced. However, we are waiting for specialist resources to come down from Auckland in regards to the commissioning. Jeff will talk a little bit more on that in his report. The other part I just wanted to talk to was the carry forwards. It came up as a question in the Finance and Insurance meeting last week. So as you'll see in the graph, there's around $3.4 million in capital works that has been carried forward. So just for clarity, of that 3.4 million, roughly 1.2 to 1.4 million of that relates to the Three Water Stimulus project. So that's work that's already underway, contracted, and will be completed by June next year. Around $1 million of that 3.4 is work that is actually already contracted. So live contracts are in place, likes of Winton Library. Around 700,000, or that leaves out 1.4 left. Of that, 700,000 roughly relates to the Downer operational capital contract, and 700,000 are roughly of other smaller type projects. So it's the smaller $700,000 that we're really focusing on now, because there's a reasonable number of projects in that for the small value of actual capital. So, but it's likely that those projects will be wrapped up into the works programs for the current year. So that's a key overview of where the total works program is at the moment. It is reasonably difficult just to forecast exactly what COVID and resources are doing to our overall year end. But we're still reasonably confident that our capital works program delivery is likely to be in the 40 million area. It's just how close we can get to what was originally anticipated is a little bit unknown at this stage. So happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I mean, the availability of materials is certainly becoming very challenging throughout the Southland District, not just for us, but a lot of tradies. They're really starting to hit the wall with regards to being able to obtain materials, and it's certainly having a negative impact on their business, their ability to continue to operate. And some I know are very, very close to standing their staff down. The contractors who do employ staff that they're going to be standing down, and 1 or 2 other trades, single tradespeople might be going on holiday for a short period of time because they're not getting any material. So it is going to be a challenge for sure. Okay, any questions, comments for Nicholas team? It would seem not. So you must have covered all the aspects, Nick, so well done. I'm happy to move the recommendation that we receive this report. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Ruttencourt. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye. Carried. Thank you very much. And now we go to item 7.5, the Town of Wastewater Scheme update. Mr. Gray, will you present your report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, councillors. This period hasn't seen a lot of movement with the Te Anau Wastewater Project, but one significant milestone we have achieved is the remedial activity on the faulty valves. That was rectified on the 13th of September. Excuse me. So that issue has been now rectified. As Nick alluded to before, we are now awaiting some more professional services to come out of Auckland, which is posing a slight problem trying to get government approval to be down here. But that should be, I'm assured, sorted out this week, and we'll have some movement next week. The pasture management, we will be looking at taking a new cut for the season in the next 2 to 4 weeks. The pasture is growing well, and there is no damage or any areas where the drip line installation has caused any impairment. So it's looking very, it's looking fantastic actually. And the Te Anau membrane site, it is ready for commissioning. It's been sitting there for quite some time now, obviously, and is well and secure, but it's just sitting waiting for commissioning to be undertaken. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Gray. So I've got a couple of questions before I open it up. So the actual delay in getting these parts only took 3 days, and you had it all fixed rather than the 6 to 12 months that was previously anticipated.
Correct.
Yep. And who's covering the cost of those faulty valves?
So through Mr. Chair, that cost was borne by the Australasian importer.
Okay. And I see in here a report, just trying to find it. Stantec are now redesigning some of the controls. Has there been a change in the design and scope of this project? What's happened there? Why is there a need for them to redesign the controls? I don't understand that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say there's been some slight changes with the design. Certainly the valves probably didn't perform as well as what they were expecting at the time, or probably not as well, but probably the way in which they were expecting. I've had 100% assurances from Stantec and their subcontractor designer that the valves are now fit for purpose, and just the commissioning plan that they have has been amended slightly.
So there hasn't really been a redesign?
I wouldn't say a redesign, I'd say a different approach is probably more applicable.
Which will be signed off through the commission process that are acceptable and working well and all that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And the other one I had was reading through this, was it a previous one? You still had some issues with the pumps, is that right? They weren't quite operating it correctly?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, no, I'm not familiar with that. No, there's no issues with the pumps.
Okay, that's right. I must have read that somewhere else. Okay, no, I'll open up for questions.
Thank you.
Okay, doesn't appear to be. So we're just waiting for some people to come down from Auckland, and you'll recommence the commissioning.
Correct.
And that would lead me to believe that it'll be operational in the very near future.
Correct. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would expect 6 weeks from the start of commissioning, we should have the plant fully commissioned.
Okay. Any other risk areas that you can think of that we need to be aware of? You know, once the plant gets commissioned, get the green light, is it down? Is that run it for us for 12 months?
Correct. Through you, Mr. Chairman, the operator has been to site numerous times and has had some training in the plant, and was in full attendance on commissioning, and will continue to be in attendance through all the commissioning process. Ultimately, COVID-19 delays may have an impairment to that, but at this stage, we should be able to commission and get the plant in full service and be like any operational plant from there on.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. I don't know why I've got this little niggle in the back of my mind. I thought I read it somewhere, and maybe it wasn't in this report. And it was the pumps pressures. I thought was some concern with them, but if it's not, then it's all good. All right. I'll move that we receive the report. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Keast. Sorry?
Councillor Harper was waving furiously.
Okay, well, since he was waving furiously, I've got to acknowledge that. So thank you, Councillor Harper. All those in favour, please say aye. Or hand up. Okay, against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll close the meeting, the Services and Assets Committee meeting, and thank you for your participation and the good, robust discussions we've had on one or two of those items. So thank you very much for your participation. I'll hand it back to Mayor Tom with regards to the council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, I think we'll keep moving. 12:30, we're taking a break for lunch.
Oh, I'm just talking to some people.
Sorry, Abe, what do you... Good stuff. Okay, so we have our council meeting. We have been through some of the preamble of the meeting before, but we'll go through again just for consistency. We have an apology from Councillor Byers. I'm happy to move that apology. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Keast. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. And against, the matter is carried. There is no leave of absence being requested. No. Is there any conflicts of interest in regards to the matter on this agenda? No public forum, no extraordinary or urgent items, and we have the confirmation of minutes on this matter. Is no?
Yeah, there's two minutes.
Yep, there is. So confirmation of those minutes, please. And a seconder. Councillor Keast. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, we'll move directly into the first and only item in open is the Ojai Community Housing Re-Roof Project. I understand Mr. Day will be here to do this, or is it Nick?
Mr. Day has not surfaced.
Okay. It's a pretty straightforward recommendation, but do you want to speak to it, Mr. Russell, or is there somebody else going to speak to it?
Through you, Your Worship, you're referring to the unbudgeted expenditure for the re-roof for the community hall?
No, for the community housing re-roof project.
Oh, sorry, community housing. Yeah, look, I understand Mr. Hamlin to my right here is very confident that he can deliver in Mr. Day's absence.
Awesome.
Mr. Day, he has just surfaced.
Oh, okay. We're all good. It's all your, the floor is yours, Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. I'll take this report as read. However, what we're looking for is unbudgeted expenditure to cover the additional cost to replace the roof on the Ojai community housing units. In the long-term plan, we had $45,000 set aside to do that job. However, when we only got one response to our tenders, that came in at $3,130 above the $45,000 that had been allocated. So we're looking for council to approve the additional funding so we can complete that work. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Day. I take it that contract or tender is be a limited time too, so you'll need some answers pretty quickly. I understand some tenders and contracts are only in existence, some of them only 7 to 10 days. Any comments or questions from councillors? Bearing in mind I can't see all hands up. No hands up, Fiona?
No.
Okay, all right, so there are don't appear to be any questions or comments in regards to this matter. Mr. Day. So is there a councillor can move the recommendation for the unbudgeted expenditure to complete this project, please? Councillor Douglas. Councillor Douglas, seconded Councillor Fraser. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Aye. Carried. There you go. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Day.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Right, we're now going to move to go into exclusion of public as per the recommendations in the agenda for item C 10.1, the judicial review of Forest and Bird First Southland District Council for New Brighton Collieries. And we will be going into confidential for the reasons and grounds referred to in the agenda. Can somebody move that we move into public excluded, please? Councillor Ravenclaw, seconded Councillor Scott. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, we'll just have a few moments while the live stream is disconnected, and I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance out in the